January is quickly approaching, and I don't really know which game to talk about first. Do I talk about Shin Megami Tensei 5, or do I talk about Guardians of the Galaxy? Because both are surprisingly good in different ways. Guess we'll see what I talk about in January. Yeah, forget these. We're talking about Trails in the Sky. Hello and welcome to the first episode of TRG Library here over on TRG's YouTube channel, where instead of me going through my backlog, I'm going through my library of games because positive vibes, I guess? I don't know, I'm just not calling it a backlog anymore. TRG has been around for over 7 years now, and one game series that has been recommended to me multiple times has been the Legend of Heroes games. And I've always been curious about trying them out, right? I like JRPGs, right? I'm into anime. I enjoy those things. But what really piqued my interest was when people told me that these were some of the best JRPGs that they've ever played, and that they're even better than Final Fantasy and Persona. To which I responded with, okay, hold on a second there. Those are fighting words, okay? These games are really that good. Well, after 40 plus hours with Trails in the Sky and finally finishing it the other night, I can tell you that those people are probably on something rather than on to something, if you catch my drift. Look, here's the thing. I've talked about this game quite a bit in the Discord, and I'll try to sum up my thoughts here in this video, knowing full well that I'm probably going to incur the wrath of the Legend of Heroes fans.
Bring it on.
Now here's the thing, I will say this about Trails in the Sky. Well, let me back up a little bit. Trails in the Sky was actually supposed to be one giant game, but because of how big the script is, it got broken up into 3 separate games, hence you have Trails in the Sky first chapter, second chapter, and Trails in the Sky the third. And each game totals about 40 plus hours, so that's a lot of time to be putting into a series of games. That's a lot of time to be putting into a series of games. Look, I'll say this. I liked the game for the most part, okay? Consider this my reviews. I did like the game overall. I liked the introduction to Estelle, Joshua, and Cassius Bright. Cassius seems like a cool dad. He jokes around with his kids. He pokes fun at Estelle, who's very confrontational, and it's easy to kind of get her mad. And Joshua's kind of the more laid-back sort of dude. And yeah, I like their personalities. They were cool to watch back and forth and have their little banter. It was fun. And I even liked the writing. The writing was really good. What's cool about this game is that each NPC doesn't just have one thing of dialogue. It's like a series, a line of dialogue things that it goes through, depending on what quests you finish and the things that you do in the story. You can go back to an NPC and they won't say the same thing that they did maybe several minutes to an hour prior to when you first talked to them. I like that. That was a cool little attention to detail where it made the world feel more lived in, more realized. And another thing I liked about it too, like if there's one thing you can say about the first Trails in the Sky game, is that the level of attention to detail is kind of unparalleled. You don't really see a whole lot of games, even now here in 2022, that have this attention to detail. The NPC dialogue thing, like I mentioned before, but add on top of that, when you go to, I mean, it's a JRPG, so you open up chests, right? You can go back to those chests and initiate the action button again, and it will give you these little dialogue things that come up that either make fun of you or crack a joke or something like that. I'm like, they didn't have to do that for this game, but they did it anyway. And not only did they do it for this game, they gave every single chest in the game its own unique individual dialogue option that comes up when you try to check the box again after you've already taken what's out of it. I saw different dialogue things come up that said like, this chest is so empty, oh so empty. And then there was another one that would make fun of me and be like, oh, so you're resorting to checking open chests? That's pretty pathetic, isn't it? And it's like, who came up with this? This is funny, this is awesome, this gives the game a certain level of charm that you don't really see in other games. And the other thing I liked about it too was the combat. The combat was like a mixture of a grid-based system, kind of like Disgaea or Final Fantasy Tactics a little bit, at least just in the framework of a grid, not really the gameplay itself. And it mixed that with the materia system from Final Fantasy VII, of course they called it in this one Orbments, that just it added complexity upon complexity to the combat. And when you go and attack an enemy, you can hit them with a physical attack and it shoves them back a couple spaces. So maybe it puts them out of range of your healer, which might protect your healer a little bit longer. As you use your heals, you have an enemy that can cancel out you trying to cast different moves, and so you gotta try and take that person down. And so it makes combat really good, and I was surprised to see that. I wasn't expecting that in this game. And the other thing I even liked about the game was the side characters, although one of my gripes about the game is that you just don't really get enough time with any of them, at least in my opinion. I felt like I could have used more time with Skara and, there's Shara. Cher? I don't know. You guys can let me know in the comments how you pronounce her name. Or Olivier, or even, you can actually get a really good amount of time with Zen, but I just feel like you could have had more time with a lot of these characters, and it was clear that the game wanted you to get invested in Estelle and Joshua for reasons that show up at the end of the game, which make a lot of sense, but I don't know. I just wish I would have had more time with some of these characters that you don't really get a lot of time of, in my opinion. And I even really dug the music. The music was really good. It was kind of jazzy and funky like Persona, but it was also kind of ethereal or atmospheric like you would get out of Final Fantasy, and I'm like, this music hits pretty well. So I recognize all of this is really positive and it sounds great, right? So what makes me kind of apprehensive about the game, or makes me just not really a little more, hesitant to recommend it? Part of the reason is because people told me that this game is a slow burn, so just go prepared for that. So I'm thinking, cool, it's a slow burn, I get it. It'll be like Persona 4 Golden, where it took maybe 2 to 3 hours before the plot really picked up and you got the characters and you were on your way. Not so much with this one. You see, in this game, your prologue is it took me 5 hours to get through. It was a meaty prologue, but it was really filled with you kind of getting introduced to the characters, Cassius leaving, so to speak, and then you going on your journey to become fully fledged bracers, who are like these, it's almost like a police type of thing. They keep the peace and help out the community, and you just basically leave on your journey to go become a full-fledged senior bracer. Then what happens is chapters 1 and 2, which took about anywhere between 6 to 8 hours to get through, were kind of like filler arcs. Like if you ever watch Naruto or Bleach, or I think even One Piece has a bunch of filler arcs, that's what it felt like. You're getting introduced to these different characters, you're going on these adventures, but it's not really the main plot. When you get to the end of chapter 1 and that particular arc ends, I found myself going, oh, well then what's the rest of the game gonna be like this? Is there more to this? By the time I got to chapter 3, I was left going, I don't know what the story really even is at this point. And I was 20 hours into the game at that point, and I was just like, do I even keep playing this? And it just gave me flashbacks to Final Fantasy 13. You know how like people who really like Final Fantasy 13 will tell you, oh, it gets good 20 hours into the game, 30 hours into the game. It's not really a compelling argument to play Final Fantasy 13. And I don't feel like it's a very compelling argument here with Trails in the Sky either, to say at 20 hours it gets good. Chapter 3 is where things really pick up, and you see the plot starting to come into play and escalate, and it's like, cool, I guess. I don't know, for me it was a really hard sell. I took a week off from the game to try to figure out if I was going to continue playing the game or if I was going to abandon it and move on to something else. I don't know, it was a really difficult, it was just difficult. But obviously, as I mentioned earlier, I did manage to play through the rest of the game and complete it and finish it out and see the story to its end, where the end was pretty surprising and pretty shocking in different ways that I won't get into on here, even though the game is almost, 10-20 years old at this point? I won't get into spoilers. But that's kind of my main problem. That's my main hang up with the game, my main apprehension. I liked the characters, I liked the combat, didn't really care for the amount of difficulty spikes that the game had in chapters 3 and 4 being the final chapter of the game. Like the music, like the orbment system, but the pacing of the story is really bad. And something you'll have to let me know if you're a Trails in the Sky fan or just a Legend of Heroes fan, are the other games like this? Because if they are, please comment down in the comments below, because I need to know. But that's why it's hard for me to really recommend recommend this game to anyone, because it's like, you know, do you like anime? Do you like a good battle system? Do you like really good characters that are fun to watch interact with each other? Do you want to sit through 20 plus hours of the game before the plot really picks up and goes anywhere? Those are all questions you'll have to ask on your own. I know for me personally, by the time I finished Trails in the Sky first chapter, I was like, yeah, now I want to start second chapter. That's what I've heard is the common reaction. You finish this game and all of a sudden you want to start second chapter. I don't know. You guys will have to let me know. And so yeah, I just wanted to start it up, and I'll probably be starting it up here very soon. So with that being said, Trails in the Sky first chapter was a roller coaster for me. It was a bit of a roller coaster, I'm not gonna lie. But if you've played it, I'd love to know down in the comments down below, or if you're playing something else, leave it down in the comments. I'm curious to know what you're playing. And sorry for not talking about Guardians of the Galaxy or Shin Megami Tensei 5 on this episode of TRG Library. Maybe that'll come next month or a little bit later on, but with February coming up quickly, Dying Light 2, Elden Ring, Horizon Forbidden West coming out, you'll just have to listen to the podcast, I guess, and I'll talk about it there. But with that being said, if you like this video, as always, hit the like button. If you didn't like this video, well, that's too dang bad, because you can hit the dislike button and I'm never gonna see it, as are anybody else. With that being said, dear listeners, thank you for checking out this episode of TRG Library here on the channel. As always, consider subscribing to the channel so you never miss an upload. And yeah, am I missing anything? No, I think that's it. So until then, till next time, be a dear, keep it light here, and I'll see you in the next video.